get ready for the offshore fishing that's coming up, but enjoy this last little bit. Be sure to get out there early. If there is one month of the year, I would tell you it's important to be on the water before daylight. It is the month of May, because that is when you can really take advantage of that shad spawn. Welcome back. We are in the month of May for our Pick 4 series. I definitely hope you all have enjoyed this, and if you have, or if you haven't, tell me in the comments below. Tell me what you like about it, what you'd like to see more of, and if there's anything you'd like to see less of, let me know that as well. So yeah, definitely enjoy doing this series, and just hoping that it's helping you all out there understand what's going on a little bit on your body of water, and helping you pick out a few baits to definitely get out there with. Month of May, kind of what I'm thinking, you know, this time of the year is that a lot of the fish are starting to wrap up spawning. Some are still lingering around, some are still spawning. But in my part of the world, a big thing that can happen this time of the year, especially around that full moon, is a shad spawn. It's short-lived, it's over pretty quick in the mornings, but that shad spawn can be such a fantastic way to catch them. It can be a tournament winning technique. You know, I've done really well in some tournaments just off of that first hour, hour and a half. Sometimes it'll linger a couple hours into the day, but that shad spawn, you can really make a lot of hay real quick in the morning if you're able to take advantage of that. So a couple of the things that I've got here, really 3 of the 4, you can definitely work a shad spawn with. And you can also just, you know, other times throughout the day that they would have their time and place. So that's kind of a few of the things that I'm thinking of going on in this month of May. Going to start off with a topwater bait, you know, a walking spook style bait. This is a Storm Topwalker, Ghost Pearl Shad color. Just an excellent topwater walking style bait. This is a bait I will use when I know those fish are feeding on shad. You know, shad are spawning up there visibly that I can see, or just out fishing on points. You know, those fish that are starting to get done spawning, starting that transition back out towards, you know, towards some of that offshore structure. Some of their first stops are going to be on little, either secondary or main lake points, maybe hanging around the edges of some boat docks and stuff. But a topwater walking bait is a great way to target those fish. And this is a big one. This is the size 13. You know, this time of the year, the water temperatures are getting warm. I'm thinking mid 60s and above. Those fish, a lot of times when they're coming off the bed, they're looking for a big meal, you know, something sizable to feed back up on. And that's why I like that size 13. I'll carry the 11. There's occasions where I'm going to have that tied on as well, but I really do like that big top walker. Something that's not terribly fast. I can fish it quick if I need to, but generally my cadence is going to be a good medium speed retrieve, walking that bait, walking the dog with it back and forth. But that is definitely a great thing. Don't think of this as only a morning deal. This will definitely work all day if you get the right kind of conditions, which to me would be a little bit of chop on the water, and probably some cloudy conditions is gonna be a good time for that. Next up, another topwater bait, and that's something, man, if you told me what month of the year do you think topwater more than any, it would be May. You could have 4 or 5 different topwater baits tied on. You could add a buzz bait to this. You could add several more topwater baits for the month of May. It is topwater time, in my opinion. But next up is a frog. This is Terminator Poppin' Frog. I like the Walking Frog Junior, the regular Walking Frog. Those can all be good, but my go-to, my favorite one of the bunch is that Poppin' Frog. I just like the action that it has. I like the castability. And everything about that really makes for an outstanding frog. Couple different color options here. Again, this is the Ghost Pearl Shad, same as that Storm Topwalker. Just a great bait fish imitator there. And you can tell if you look at that one up close, that one has caught a few bass. I mean, that one has been through the ringer. I've got baby powder on it. I use baby powder, just a little side tip here, in my frog box. When those frogs are, you know, a little bit damp from having used them, you sprinkle a little bit of baby powder in that box, and it will keep those legs from sticking together when they're wet. That box gets hot in the boat. A little bit of baby powder goes a long way in keeping your frogs, you know, fresh and clean for the next day's use. So, but yeah, that Ghost Pearl Shad, if I know those fish are keyed in on bait fish, and that Cocoa Camo is one I'm going to use that color, especially if I know those bass are still spawning. I think it does a good job of imitating bluegill, and just really kind of a natural color that I'm able to fish in places and imitate, yeah, whether that's bluegill or some type of sunfish, but anything that those bass don't want hanging around those areas where some of them are still spawning. That's what I'm going to go with, that cocoa camo. That for sure is a favorite of mine. Those two right there, if you're going to pick out a couple colors at Bass Pro, that's the two I would go with. Great thing about that frog, completely weedless. You can skip it, you can throw it anywhere and not have to worry about getting it hung up. So that's a really good thing about that. A lot of bodies of water are rising this time of the year, a lot of debris in the water. With that popping frog, you're able to fish it in places you literally cannot fish anything else and catch fish because of that. So next up is a Terminator swim jig. This is the heavy duty swim jig, and this is probably one of my favorite, take it back, this is my favorite way to catch bass that are on that shad spawn type pattern. I love to fish a white swim jig when I know those bass are eating, you know, those spawning shad. Much like the frog, I can fish this basically anywhere. I can skip it under boat docks. I can fish it down a riprap bank. I can throw it in a laydown. I can throw it in submerged grass. I can throw it in, you know, grass that's above the water. I think that's called emergent grass. You got submerged and emergent, but I can fish it in any of those type of places because it is weedless. It'll come through that stuff really well. And I'm going to go with either 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce, just depending on what I'm trying to do with that. 1/2 ounce is my go-to for swimming around boat docks. I'm able to skip it really well, get it under there, and then the cadence that I fish that jig with a 1/2 ounce swim jig, I'm going to have it down there in that 3 to 5 foot depth, where it seems like to be a really good depth for me to be able to target those fish that are hanging under those docks where they're feeding on those shad. So it seems like you let it get down just a little bit in that water column, and that's where you end up catching some of the bigger ones at. So the trailer for me on that white swim jig, that's a Bass Pro Swimming Elite chunk. That just is a really good chunk. It doesn't have a lot of resistance to it. That's what I like to swim around those boat docks. Now, if I'm fishing it in grass, trying to fish it really shallow, I may lighten up to a 3/8 ounce and go with the trailer that's got more resistance to it. One of those big flappy crawl style trailers, something to give that bait some lift, keep it up high in the water column, keep it from getting buried down in that grass. You can do a lot of that, not only with the size head of the jig you're using, but always remember the trailer you put on the back of it is going to affect just how deep you're able to fish that. But yeah, Terminator swim jig, especially a white one, can be dynamite around the shad spawn in the month of May. Final one, I couldn't go a whole month without talking about a crankbait. So we didn't in the month of April, but I couldn't avoid it again for another month. So for May, if I had to pick one crankbait that I think is a player all across the country, that would be that DT10. That bait, for those fish that are first getting pulled back out there, grouped up a little bit, or even some fish that are still pre-spawned and haven't pulled in just yet, that are hanging in that 8 to 12 foot range, that Rapala DT10 is a bait that you can fish that's going to get to those fish. I have had some unbelievable days, some huge schools of fish on a DT10 in the month of May. One thing about it, you always got to keep in mind, this is a month of transition for those fish offshore as well as the fish that are up shallow. These fish they're coming or they're going. They're really not staying anywhere a terrible long amount of time. They're moving in towards that summer pattern. Those fish that you may find on a place on an offshore little break or bar or whatever on a DT10, you may really catch the fire out of them for 2 or 3, 4 days. It may last a week, it may last 2 weeks, but those fish aren't going to stay there for a month. So just always keep that in mind. But I have had some unbelievable days, get out there, side image around with that hummingbird and find some crazy big schools of fish in that 8 to 10 feet of water, places where it would surprise people just how shallow a big school of bass like that would get. But that DT10 is a great way to catch them. Pretty much always going to be a shad color for me this time of the year. This is big shad. Obviously, that's a favorite of mine. Green gizzard is a good one. The water's a little more off color. Citrus shad is a good one. But yeah, DT10 is a fantastic crankbait for the month of May. So stay right there. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Again, you know, the month of May can be a good time. Yeah, most of the fish across a lot of the country, especially the South, you know, they're wrapping up spawning. You may even have some fish spawning on into June, but I'm thinking the biggest waves of fish typically are getting done by this time in May. So get ready for the offshore fishing that's coming up, but enjoy this last little bit. Be sure to get out there early. If there is one month of the year, I would tell you it's important to be on the water before daylight. It is the month of May, because that is when you can really take advantage of that shad spawn. I've seen days where it only lasted until the sun broke the horizon, then it was over with. But if you were out there for that 30-minute, 60-minute window, whatever it may be, it could be some of the finest fishing you experience all year. So this is 1 month. It does pay to get up early.